Justin, Eric, Nathan, and Joseph, tell us what to do.
Okay, well, you are listening to Hysteria Continues, and this is Armand Mastriani, the director of He Knows You're Alone.
So, yes, and welcome back to another episode of the Hysteria Continues. And this time we're dipping our toes into the Terrifier series, starting off with Terrifier from 2016, which of course is the first Terrifier movie, but it's obviously Art the Clown had appeared in a couple of short movies and an anthology, which made up of those short movies before this. But we thought, let's go straight into Terrifier. So it's our first visit to Art the Clown, although I believe all of us have seen all the movies, haven't we? Am I right in thinking that?
I have.
I don't think Joseph has, though.
Have you not, Joseph? Have you not seen parts 2 and 3?
No, I've seen this first one, but I have not seen 2 and 3 yet.
Right. Okay. Well, it'd be interesting to come onto those, but we thought it's kind of one of the bigger franchises and probably the biggest surprise horror-wise of the last 10 years? I kind of guess. When you think there can't be another kind of horror superstar, along comes Art the Clown. So, but we'll be tight-lipped at the moment until we get into the movie about our thoughts on Damien Leone's series and whether or not we enjoy it. But before we do that, how are we doing? Say, Joseph is kind of sporting the latest look from Milan.
Yes, I'm wearing like a throw. I don't know why. It's not really even that cold here right now, but I just woke up so cold. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm putting on my little my weighted blanket. So you're going to see a very comfortable me during this episode.
A throw and sunglasses.
Yeah.
That's quite the dichotomy, or whatever you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, when you wake up and you're feeling a little cold, do you have a little rub just to warm yourself up?
Oh, Justin, you're so base.
Well, coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment.
Eric, I can't get over you not wearing the headphones after all this time. It's like they're so different.
Sorry, no, they will be back. It's just that I had small earbuds standing by, and I said I'll just use them instead.
Ah, okay. I thought there was something changed. I thought you'd done something with your hair or your beard.
Yeah.
So, and Nathan, how are you doing? I'm a bit worried that there may be like a Final Destination-esque accident with that fan above your head.
I mean, it's possible. It's
we'd have to turn it on first.
There could be all kinds of little things going on, like the screws up top are coming loose, and I don't know it. So stuff like that. But luckily, it's far enough back that I don't think the worst of it would hit me.
No, that's true. Although there probably are a few screws loose, aren't there?
In this house, yes.
Yes. But so Terrifier. So yeah, I don't know if I said it's episode 352, I believe. But shall we get straight into it?
What if that guy did this to your car?
What guy? The clown? You really think someone slashed my tires?
Well, he knows this is your car. He saw us getting into it earlier.
Hey, handsome!
Cut it out.
My friend wants your number.
Kill you.
What is it, Tara?
Dawn and I are sort of stranded. She has a flat tire and no spare, and I was kind of hoping you could pick us up. is wrong with you?
What, did you think he was gonna hack me up into little pieces or something?
So the synopsis is, and I've taken this as a very short synopsis from IMDb, but for a film that arguably has very little plot, it's a maniac named Art the Clown terrorizes two friends on Halloween and everyone who gets in his way. So basically, it does what it says on the tin. That is the plot of the movie, really. So you do have these two party girls, I kind of guess, coming home from some kind of Halloween party, and that this whole film is kind of, and I know Damien Leone was kind of, or Leone, sorry, was inspired by the great slasher movies of the 80s. But there's lots of little touches in this that he takes it in a kind of more extreme version, but it kind of reminded me of the way Michael Myers in the original Halloween in the 1978 version, before John Carpenter came out with the whole Laurie Strode, Michael Myers brother-sister relationship, that he just kind of spots the three friends, Laurie Strode and her two friends, and then just latches onto them like some kind of shark sensing blood. And then that was what the scary thing was around the original Halloween before it introduced the brother-sister angle. So a similar thing with this. It seems like they wouldn't necessarily have come to any harm unless they were literally didn't catch his attention. So they go to a pizza restaurant, and then Art the Clown comes in, sits at another table, starts waving at them, but they're both kind of creeped out by him. So they leave. He kills the two people working in the pizza restaurant, and one of them needs a piss, basically, and they go into this kind of very cheap looking tenement building, and then basically Art the Clown stalks them and the various people in the building, and that's pretty much the movie, isn't it? Am I missing anything, really?
Well, apart from the fact that he smears his plops all over the bathroom of the pizzeria.
I know you'd remember that, Eric.
Yes, you would remember that, but
well, it's an important plot point.
Well, it's kind of, for me, I mean, I'm laying my cards on the table. I mean, I have seen all of these. I saw All Hallows Eve, which I believe, I'm right in thinking, has the two shorts, doesn't it, from the Terrifier, the original short, and also, is it a Seventh Circle or something, or the Ninth Circle?
The Ninth Circle.
Ninth Circle, which is the other Art the Clown one, which was cut into All Hallows Eve anthology. I have mixed feelings about the Terrifier series. They are an endurance sport, I kind of guess, in some ways, aren't they? Endurance horror. So there's a kind of a thin line for me between black comedy and black humor and the kind of misanthropic nature of these movies, which takes them more into kind of torture porn territory. And it's probably no surprise to anyone watching or listening that we talked about it. I don't think any of us are big fans of torture porn, even when torture porn was a big thing. Like the Hostel movies, yeah, I kind of watched them, but all of that kind of, it just kind of left me a bit cold. It wasn't my thing, and I can understand that people kind of watching those movies are kind of testing themselves and testing their limits about what they can endure. But does that actually make a fun time watching a movie? So with this film, I kind of like the considering the characters have no characterization really at all. The two main actresses I think are pretty likable. You've also got this kind of wraparound that you've got at the beginning of the movie that I had to kind of remember what was going on from when I've seen it before, that you have this kind of disfigured woman who kind of looked like it was going to mirror kind of based on that famous case of that woman whose face was ripped off by a chimp.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And then she goes on TV and she talks and she's got like a veil hanging over her face. And the woman who's interviewing her is kind of mean about her. And then she turns around and kills this woman. And it turns out that she is Victoria, I think, isn't she? She's a sister of one of the girls who gets killed by Art the Clown, who then gets attacked and he rips her face off. And a lot of these things seem to be taken from other things. It can remind me of that infamous zombie bath salts murder of that guy who ate that guy's face. So there seem to be lots of things taken from kind of other real life cases, but also there was a lot of stuff taken obviously from the slasher movies of yore, especially the ending where Art the Clown, who's dead, and it felt very Friday 13th final chapter, going into the morgue when he comes back to life and presumably kills the coroner. For me, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this movie, and I'm kind of really interested to see what you guys think. In some ways, I rewatched Terrifier the short today, which is the one where the young woman stops at a gas station, and she sees the attendant being killed by Art the Clown, and then he kind of basically chases her, and it's kind of he's be able to catch up with her and appear in sort of almost like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers kind of teleporting ways. He just appears in different parts of the road where he couldn't really be there. So there's definitely feels like there's a supernatural thing going on with this. And obviously by the end of this movie, it's that kind of play of the supernatural non-undead killer. But I've got more to say, but I'm just kind of interested as far as kind of where your level of entertainment falls, the what you get from these movies. And would this kind of movie, would it played better when you were like 15 years old? I don't mean that as a diss to anyone watching this and enjoying these movies, but for me, when I was like 15-year-old gorehound looking for gory movies and stopping it with my finger on the pause button on the VCR, in scanners when the head explodes. And I just don't know if I get as much enjoyment for this kind of level of gore. But is it the level of gore? Is it perhaps the kind of the so black humor that it becomes cruel? I don't know. So I just think it was be an interesting one for us to talk about. But as you are less versed in these movies than maybe the rest of us, Joseph, as in you haven't seen the second and third one, what are your thoughts on this movie and the whole Art the Clown phenomenon generally?
Well, I hadn't seen this one since it came out. When it came out, I just didn't like it. I didn't really understand how it became so popular. Everyone's saying Art the Clown's the new Freddy Krueger, or he's the new Jason Voorhees. And, I'm glad they have this new horror icon. It's always a good thing when there's some kind of familiar face running around in horror, but I just don't really find clowns all that scary or that interesting or that funny. So it really did nothing for me at the time. So I rewatched this, going into it thinking, okay, you know what you're going to get. So just try to enjoy it that way. And you know what? The first 30 or 35 minutes, maybe the first 45 minutes, some of it's pretty interesting. Like when Art's like kind of lingering in the background and kind of taunting them without like harming them. I thought that stuff was actually pretty well done. I thought maybe a movie like that, the full movie like that, I probably would have liked it a lot more, but I just found it cynical. I mean, I don't get the rub here. Like, it's basically, like you said, it's just torture porn. He ties them up, he rips their faces off, he does stuff like smearing shit all over the walls, and everyone's saying, oh, it's a throwback to slashers of the 80s and everything. And I'm like, this is nothing like any of the slashers I ever watched growing up. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just very cynical. It's very, like you said, if you were 15 years old and you'd never watched a horror movie and you suddenly got into horror movies because you saw all this gore and you saw this clown being really weird, you'd probably like it a lot more, but it just does nothing for me. I love the stuff in the pizzeria. That stuff is really well done, I actually thought, but I don't really have much else to say on this movie. I'm just not a fan of Art the Clown. I'm not a fan of that style of film. It just does nothing for me. So I didn't hate it this time around. There was some stuff I liked a lot in this movie, but it just wasn't enough. And, considering that I just find clowns to be more annoying than I do anything else, it just does nothing for me. It's really all I have to say. It does nothing for me. So if you like Art the Clown, you like the Terrifier films, cool. I'm glad we got this new kind of icon that you can look up to. But for me, I'd rather go back to, Harry Warden or Michael Myers or something. So yeah, I'm just not the right person to review this movie.
But isn't it funny? I mean, just the fact that the gore in this is so extreme, and the 2 and 3 are much more extreme gore-wise, I would say, but and much more ambitious in those ways. That there's very little. There has been some controversy about these films, which we'll touch on, especially this particular film. But it doesn't seem to. One of the things is that I'm just thinking, if this film had been released in 1982 on video in the UK, it would be Video Nasty #1, wouldn't it, Eric? It would be like it would be the one that all the tabloids would just be going the most disgusting. And I don't see any of that anywhere. There's no, because quite often with films like this that are very, very gory, like The Evil Dead, for instance, Evil Dead 2, whatever. I mean, that's obviously 80s horror movies for you, but is that it's kind of leavened by some humor, but the humor in this isn't really funny, is it? It's not even meant to be funny, is it? It's just meant to be ironic and cruel, and so it's dark in a way that's not funny. So I'm just trying to get a handle on it, really, because I'm kind of part of me is kind of hats off for making a film so transgressive and so extreme, and getting it into become a cool celebrity and getting it into all these theatres and making so much money off it. It's really quite an achievement, but what that says about current horror, I don't know, because obviously horror films in general are much more extreme now, aren't they? Mainstream ones like the Scream movies, the violence in them is much more extreme than it was originally, and that's not just to do with censorship. There's something else going on, and I'm just kind of curious what it is. And obviously, as horror movie fans, it's kind of interesting for us to just
are we so cynical and jaded now as a society across the globe that horror has to get more and more extreme to kind of appeal to a lot of people? I don't know. I'm not speaking for us personally, but as a collective, is that what's happened? I don't know.
Well, I think there's different types of horror, isn't it? Because I mean, you've got a film like Skinamarink, which has got no gore or violence really. They've got a threat in it, but all of the Hell House LLC films are not particularly violent, and they were popular. So it is curious, but there is a kind of something about them, like the new Scream movies. I haven't seen the new Scream movie, but I imagine, Nathan, you talked about last time, and hopefully by the time this goes out, I would have seen it. But is that as violent as the last Scream movies?
It's pretty violent, but I actually feel like the last two might be more so, because there's at least a couple of deaths in the new Scream that I thought were almost played a little more comical than scary. I mean, I could really only think of one death in the new Scream movie right off the top of my head that I thought, that was pretty gory.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, I'm just going to one final thought, and I'll pass it on to you guys. But it's just what something sparked from what Joseph said is that this was kind of based on a love of 80s horror movies and those kind of the behemoths of slasherdom like Jason, Freddy, Michael, and it doesn't really play out like it kind of plays out. It plays some kind of lip service to slasher movies, but the thing about 80s slasher movies, apart from I would say some of films like Uncut, like The Prowler, with the Tom Savini gore effects, which do linger, and you're kind of almost invited to kind of gawp at the suffering. But the majority of slash movies in the early 80s wasn't really about the suffering, was it? The gore was could be quite extreme, but the heads flying off. You didn't then spend 5 minutes watching people being tortured, or kind of or going to funerals and watching people families crying, all that kind of stuff. Whereas it just seems now a lot of those more modern slasher movies, like the Terrifier series, is more about witnessing the suffering in almost like the same way as people might queue up to watch a beheading or someone burned at the stake. And I'm not moralizing about it. I haven't really formed my opinion one way or the other, but I just think it's an interesting to talk about, and also how other people who are not horror fans, how that can reflect perhaps on people who are, how they view these films. But Eric, your views on Terrifier, how it compares to the other one, the others in the series?
Well, I hadn't watched the first one since it came out, so this is my first viewing of it in maybe 8 or 9 years. And like you, I've kind of mixed feelings. I mean, its USP is its outrageous gore. And I just find it bamboozling how something so incredibly gory and violent and downbeat gets away with being in multiplexes, and you were saying, like, would a 15-year-old me have liked this? Possibly, because I remember in the 80s just having this thirst for gory movies and just renting videos and thinking, oh, this has been cut to ribbons by the BBFC or the MPAA or whoever did it. There'll never be a time where I'll get to see somebody bisected with a hacksaw. And then all of a sudden along come the new millennium and the noughties, and you have Hostel and Saw and then the Terrifier movies. we recently did a commentary track for Friday the 13th Part 7 on Patreon, and when you think about how much they were not allowed to get away with compared to what Terrifier gets away with, it's just astonishing. I kind of warmed to it more watching it the second time around. Like Joseph said, I think that opening half hour or so is really good. The scene in the pizza joint where Art the Clown is kind of just staring at Tara and making her feel uneasy, and thus making the audience uneasy. I thought that was really well done. I think the filmmakers are wise to keep him as a silent character. It's always a bonus in my book, because one of the things I think that I don't really like about the Scream series is just how unbelievably chatty the killers always are. Secondly, I think the character of Tara is quite interesting. She's this likable alternative rock chick. Like you said, I mean, there's not really a great amount of depth to any of these characters, but she is likable. And, 99% of the time she would be the final girl, but they kill her off halfway through, and it's her sister Vicky that becomes the final girl. And she doesn't even get a sort of a happy ever after ending either, for, because she's kind of transformed into that disfigured character we see at the start, who in the sequels she becomes that's the villainous female in the sequels, isn't it, Victoria? And I think she is a really creepy presence in the sequels, far scarier than Art the Clown. I think Art the Clown is quite scary, though. I think he has that sort of Jason Voorhees quality of, if he sees you, you're as good as dead. You might as well just pack it in, because you're doomed. But yeah, it's that lack of fun quality that I think is the big problem for me. The violence is very much informed by the torture porn movement of the noughties and that, where it just wallows in suffering. There's a scene in, I think, Terrifier 2 where there's a girl in her bedroom being dismembered piece by piece while she's still alive, and her mother walks in and she's crying for her mother as her face is being ripped off and stuff. And it's really far-fetched, it's really over the top, but it's also really depressing to watch. Now I'm 52 years old now, so maybe it's an age thing, but I just prefer kind of the fun gore of the films we had in the 80s. Like Evil Dead had people having their eyes popped out and limbs chopped off, but there was something kind of fun about that. Also, I feel this film Terrifier, it's quite short actually. It's about 85 minutes, whereas the sequels are much longer. That kind of works in its favour, although I do feel it's missing a kind of a middle act. It goes kind of full throttle after about 20 minutes or so, and it kind of becomes a bit repetitive maybe after that. But I kind of like the nightmarish vibe to it. I like the fact that it doesn't really follow the rules of logic to some degree. It feels kind of like a nightmare. I think there's some suspenseful sequences in there. As I said, the pizzeria sequence, the bit where Vicky is hiding in the storage cupboard, I thought that was good. But I just don't find it a fun watch. As I said, possibly because I'm an old fuddy-duddy now, but I just like my violence a bit more popcorn. I mean, there's a huge difference for me between watching Jason sort of stick an axe in Melissa's head in Friday the 13th Part 7 and seeing Art the Clown taking a hacksaw to a naked woman's private parts while she's still alive. I can kind of see why it has a fan base, because I think if you're a gore hound, this might tick the box, but it's not a fun watch for me. But I did enjoy it more second time around than I did first, so maybe when the sequels come around, although one of the big problems with me for the sequels is that they're about 2.5 hours or so.
It's kind of a curious thing, isn't it? Because I think rewatching the original Terrifier, the short, it works better. Art the Clown works better in a short movie. And this film seemed like a short movie that had been extended to 85 minutes. It wasn't like, it didn't really have the plot or anything. It's probably possibly to do with the fact, I mean, the budget was like $35,000 to $55,000, so it's a very small budgeted movie, and it looks good. It looks really good for that. Whereas the sequels go off in a really bizarre direction, don't they, with a magic sword and all this comic book stuff, magic shield, and you're kind of thinking, what the hell? I mean, in some ways I kind of think that's good because it's so out of the box and it's not what you'd expect. But on the other hand, I'm just thinking it's kind of just in the same way as John Carpenter thought, what the fuck do I do to expand Halloween into, basically the original Halloween was this kind of pure basic plotless movie almost. It was just like a, had no very little plot, and then to extend something that has basically a skeleton of a plot, and then you have to add all these things in, and it sometimes ruins the magic. But yeah, Nathan, I'm as our kind of youngest person on the podcast. And I know you do enjoy a drop of blood or two. What were your thoughts on Terrifier? Presumably it's obviously not your first time at the rodeo.
No, I'd seen it before. I'd seen the first I saw All Hallows Eve. That's my first introduction to Art the Clown, was in All Hallows Eve. And then I saw Terrifier, and then I watched the full Not Circle short back after I watched the first Terrifier. And I do agree with you, Justin, in that I think it worked better as a short film because, I guess some of my complaints that I have is, aside from the fact that it does linger on suffering, because I was thinking like in Friday the 13th, when Annie gets her throat cut, you see the blood pouring down, but it cuts away. In Terrifier, they would have cut her throat halfway open, pulled the neck back, and let it spurt out while she's screaming. I mean, they would have gone like, I guess, the extra, mile with it. And I don't mind the gore. I actually think, I enjoy a bit of gore. It's pretty much, I guess, for me, what I don't like quite as much is when it lingers on suffering. Like Eric said, when the girl being tortured is calling out for her mom. I mean, I don't find that stuff fun. Like, I don't know. It just, like you said, it feels kind of sad in a way. And I'm like, I don't, like that. But in this one, I definitely agree with you, Justin, in that the gore in this one is pretty crazy, but I mean, it gets crazier in the sequels, no doubt. They kind of, take it many steps further in the sequels. I think one of my biggest complaints about the first Terrifier, and they actually fixed this in 2 and 3, is that we don't really have a formidable final girl. Like, I like Tara, I like the character, but I just never felt during this whole movie that anybody is going to be able to fight Art fully or take him down. I was like, nobody's going to be able to stop this clown. So, I mean, it just felt kind of whatever to me. I mean, at least in the sequels, they introduce a character who, is kind of, able to basically fight him. And, we're like, oh, okay, now this is a final girl that can, go up against him. But we don't really get that in this. It's definitely more of Art's movie than anything else. And
we were saying that, actually, sorry to interrupt you, Nathan. We were saying that, but we covered Army of Darkness on Patreon recently, and we were saying that film lacks any kind of threat, and that the exact opposite is true of Terrifier, where it's all threat. It's so much threat that you can't see anyone surviving.
Yeah, and I guess I like the idea of, even in movies where the final girl doesn't make it, I at least want to think that they could. I don't know. Like, I like the whole back and forth, give and take between the final character and the killer. But like I said, we don't get that here. It feels hopeless from the get-go. Like, it feels like these characters are just going to die, like, no matter what happens.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because these films are nihilistic, aren't they? In the way that most 80s slasher movies aren't nihilistic, which is a strange way to think about it when you're thinking about a film where people are being systematically hunted down and killed by some unseen threat. But there are some nihilistic early 80s slashers, like Don't Answer the Phone, Eyes of a Stranger, Don't Go in the House. Those kind of movies, I would say, do have a nihilistic edge to them, or films like Driller Killer. But the majority of films, early 80s slasher movies, are more popcorn oriented, which are going to guess more like the ones we enjoy, like Hell Night. And like you were saying, with like the Friday the 13th, you were saying like with Annie having a throat cut. Was it Annie? Yeah, but but if you had Melissa being in this, it would be like you would hit her in the head with an axe and she'd be lying on the floor kind of in convulsions for 5 minutes while he laughed at her. Basically, that's what would happen if this was a Terrifier movie.
And then he would probably pull out some kind of scalpel and slice her up a lot while she's laying there screaming and convulsing. So, yeah, that's kind of how I think it would have gone if Terrifier or Art the Clown was there instead of Jason.
I think it's kind of there are some death scenes in some of the later movies, like where Art the Clown, Disney put a chainsaw up someone's arse.
Yes, in part
and
3.
it just goes on and on and on, and there's so much blood and there's so much screaming that it can't help but become comical to some degree. I did see something which I thought was quite interesting. Someone said, I don't know if it was Damien Leone wanted it to be, but he was like, Art the Clown was supposed to be like Mr. Bean of horror. Like the Mr. Bean, like the kind of the mime kind of character of like, but it's either he's got such a jet black sense of humor that is so jet black that it isn't funny unless it's almost like a dog whistle. Unless you're a dog, you can't hear it, and it's the same with this sense of humor. It's unless you're so finely attuned to this jet black humor that it's actually difficult to find any humor in it. There's also kind of like this kind of weird thing running through. I mean, part of the controversies about these movies, and I forgot actually rewatching the original Terrifier short. At the end of the movie, the woman, spoiler alert, is tied to a table. Her arms and legs have been chopped off. Her breasts have been cut off. And Art the Clown has carved in the words slut, whore and cunt into her torso. And she's screaming and he's laughing at her. And I'm just thinking, that is very disturbing, obviously. But then in this movie, you have the character who is hung upside down, and then they basically saws through her vagina and cuts her in half. And you're kind of thinking, and I've seen Damien Leone talking about justifying it, saying that he's brought up by women, he's not misogynistic, there isn't anything going like that. But I do, what exactly is going on with that, especially for slasher movies that have been argued wrongly. I think that they're misogynistic. For the majority of them, I don't think a slasher movie is necessarily a misogynistic genre in any way, especially given the fact that many of the final girls that we know, I think there is a kind of talk for a lot of slasher movies to definitely be kind of feminist leaning, and I know we know female horror fans who do talk about that, or they may certainly find certain films have issues with certain films, but it's kind of, I'm just trying to get my head around what is the fun in that? Where's the fun in that kind of sexualized torturing?
I just think it's gore. I think that, but there's a lot of people. And I mean, I was a huge gore hound when I was younger. Kind of like Eric, I guess. I'm not so much now. I mean, I don't mind it. But I don't know. I think I look for, either cheesiness or suspense, just things like that. I guess I look more towards now. And that's not to say Terrifier doesn't have suspense. I mean, like you guys said, when he's kind of menacing them in the pizza shop, I thought that was a really great moment. And I love the scene where after he kills the cat lady, and he comes up the stairs, like wearing her scalp and everything. I thought that was a very creepy scene as well. But then you do have scenes like where, the friend is hanging upside down and, like you said, he starts cutting her between the legs. But, the thing is, that's not going to kill her instantly. Like, you basically get her suffering as he saws all the way down through her body until she finally dies. But it just, I guess those kind of death scenes, again, they feel more torture porn to me. And that's not my favorite. I definitely am much more of a slasher hound. I feel like my main thing with Terrifier is I feel like it's a case of style over substance. Like, there's a lot of style here, and there's a lot of great like set pieces and scary moments and gore and all that stuff. But I don't know, there's just not really much meat to the story. I mean, it really just is, pretty bare bones. And again, I'm saying this as somebody that loves Friday the 13th, who it's not like those are like full of characterization. So I'm probably a total hypocrite. But yeah, I don't know, like, it's the mean streak that kind of turns me off of it a bit. Again, though, and this is what's weird to me, is I'm like Justin. My feelings are extremely mixed because I feel like I'm complaining a lot, but I didn't dislike watching it. Like, I found a lot to like as I was watching it. Like, I did enjoy, a lot of the, a lot of the scenes with Art, because I feel like Art is actually a very good villain. And I feel like my thing is, when I first watched this, which I liked it more this time around than the first time. But I think one thing I said when I watched it the first time is that Art, I found him to be such a good villain. I thought he deserved a better film to be the killer in. But again, I'm slagging this movie off a lot. So let me say what I did like about it. I liked the fact that the character of Tara, I thought that she was great fun. And I kind of liked that they kill off the final girl halfway through. I thought it's very unexpected, even though kind of a part of me was like, well, I kind of wanted to see her all the way through the movie. But, it is what it is. And the thing is, when I watched the short films with Art, I loved those. Like, I thought the short films were fantastic, but the short films are also, they're gory, but it's much more about the stalking and the chasing and and all of that. Like this one, definitely feels more to me like how many people can we get in here and how much gore can we throw in for each of the death scenes. And there's a lot of people that love it, and I get that. But for me, I would probably go 6 out of 10. I think it's above average for sure, but I don't know. There's something, I think there's a few things that could have been changed that I think would have made it better. And I actually think he did do a few changes in the sequels that made them better to me than this one. More importantly, like I said, I don't know. I'm a huge proponent of final girls in slasher movies, and I need a good final girl. And it's not their fault in this film. I just don't think they're given much to do as far as fighting back against him. I mean, yeah, he takes a few hits with a 2x4, but big deal. He's going to turn around and chop your head off or rip it off with his hands.
See, that's my problem with the gore in these movies, is that it's more of a personal problem, but I can't separate myself personally from knowing that gore is just an effect. And once you see the effect, that's pretty much it. That's why I like the older slashers where the effect is kind of instant. It's really hard to explain, and I'm not trying to gatekeep in any way, but when you see like a whole lot of gore, it just gets boring to me.
It gets very repetitive. I mean, I think, again, reading interviews with the director, he kind of said, looking back on it, he kind of wished he'd given a bit more of a backstory, certainly to the character of Victoria. But he was because he's also a special effects person, isn't he? I mean, that's what his kind of, so I think he kind of saw it in a lot of ways as a showcase for his special effects. And in hindsight, realized there really wasn't enough else going on in the movie, but arguably. Having said that, there is a kind of weird irony in some ways that he was saying these work better as a short movie, but as Eric says, the parts 2 and 3 become epic length movies, which don't really have the plot either to sustain them. So it is very episodic, very showpiece, what's the word for it, kind of like a sort of, just set piece kind of gore scenes throughout, kind of loosely hung together with this kind of story of this young girl and her brother. So
they do at least give them some characterization, though. The girl and her brother, like they actually fleshed them out.
I mean, I don't necessarily think, I mean, I'm a great proponent, it's like, it's paraphrasing what Dario Argento said, that, stories in real life don't necessarily have endings, so why should they always in movies? Or kind of, it's basically saying that just because you don't have to have everything tied up in a neat bow in a movie, you can allow some things left to be open to interpretation. Now, sometimes I think that can be done well intentionally, but there's also an argument sometimes it's kind of Emperor's New Clothes a little bit with movies, that sometimes people do stuff in them and you think, actually, do they even really have any intention behind that, or does it just look cool? I mean, an argument in case would be the character Victoria, who goes on through the other movies. There's nothing to say why, there's no indication about why she should go from this well-adjusted student who's then attacked to becoming this murderous ghoul by the end of the movie.
Possessed or something? Is there some plot thread about her being possessed by some spirit or something?
But possibly, but not in this movie, is there?
No,
I don't know if it's.
Oh yeah, of course, because she kills the interviewer.
To be fair, I don't know that she was necessarily a killer before then. I think what happened is she heard that interviewer talking crap about her, and she's like, "Well, I'm going to show you. Let's see how you like being tortured."
Yeah, but then she goes on and then she becomes like an acolyte of some kind, doesn't she? Sort of in the later movies, or some
she
kind
got a taste for it.
God, possibly, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't know whether or not in the hands of somebody, I don't want to say more accomplished, but somebody else, that whether or not that could have been developed in a slightly more satisfying way, perhaps. But it's exactly, I mean, what are these movies? What are they for? Who are they for? They're obviously a huge audience out there for them. Because I mean, this movie was very small, then did get theatrically released, didn't it? I think a year or so after it was made, and then made close to $1 million. And then wasn't the last one made something crazy, didn't it? Like sort of $50 or $60 million.
It did really well, and they had, like, in the weeks leading up to its release, they had Terrifier 1 and 2 double bills in the cinema for you to catch up on the action.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, I'm not really ragging because, I mean, obviously, like, we're horror movie fans, aren't we? So it kind of feels a bit weird for us to be talking. And I don't, I am really mixed on this, and I just kind of can't, and I don't quite understand why I can't really articulate. I don't hate this movie, and I don't love it.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate it. I just find it the gore scenes uncomfortable to watch just because they linger too much on human suffering, and I'm a real softy and sweetheart inside.
With me, I'm just more, I don't hate or like the movie. I'm just indifferent.
Well, I know Eric States often complain he's soft, but I was impressed that Nathan used the word slagged. So we've been teaching you something, Nathan.
Oh, yeah. Well, did I ever tell you guys about the inverted commas? Because I said something, it's been a little while back in front of Wes, and I said, yeah, in inverted commas. And he's like, what? And I was like, I told him. And at first he was like, that's not a thing. And I'm like, yes, it is. I'm like, Justin says it all the time.
You say quotes, don't you, over there? Is it?
Yeah. I think it's air quotes is what we say.
Okay, well, let's, I mean, I haven't got a huge amount of background. I mean, the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, and I think kind of it makes sense, is that they said it kind of references Ed Gein, which makes more sense when you talk with the cat ladies, kind of when he wears her breasts, doesn't he, and her scalps her. So that whole Ed Gein type thing of collecting, and also the sawing, I think that Ed Gein did that, didn't he? He cuts a woman in half. Which is hung up. So.
Well, not anyone alive, though.
No.
Like, if he did do that, it wasn't while they were alive, because he was more of a grave robber. He only killed 2 people, and he shot them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he liked to rob graves a lot.
Yeah, so obviously there's some controversies, and we're going to not go deeply into them, but one of the more recent ones was the actress Catherine Corrigan, who's the one who gets sawn in half, was recently had sued the filmmakers for a number of reasons. So it's probably, as it's a kind of ongoing legal thing, I'm not necessarily going to get into it, but I know the film has attracted all sorts of kind of unwanted attention in a lot of ways. And again, I don't really feel that it's our place as a horror podcast to necessarily get into all of that. But I can guess that's the danger, isn't it, when your series gets so successful? Because I very much doubt that Damien Leone thought when he was making these short movies and making the first Terrifier that he would end up kind of having to think about making a multi-million-dollar kind of Terrifier 4, which is going to be, I mean, probably have the biggest budget, and I'm just kind of, it boggles the mind to think what he might come up with. So, I mean, is there any other background or anything you wanted to bring up? Because I did look, I couldn't find any newspaper articles or reviews of this at the time of its release. So it kind of definitely was kind of quite an underground, or wasn't something that kind of necessarily, became a kind of an underground hit with audiences, but not necessarily noticed much by critics at the time, unlike the sequels.
Yeah, my understanding was that it did just enough to kind of warrant a sequel. Like it was popular, but not popular. I can't really explain it. And then part 2 onwards is when it became kind of a cultural phenomenon in a way.
I feel like it's because of Art. I think Art himself is the reason that we got the sequels, because, and I didn't really mention this, but the actor, David Howard Thornton, that plays Art, he does a really good job at being creepy and menacing. Like, to me, it's his movie, because I'm like, he's just fantastic in it. And so I think he carries the movie really well.
Can't be long before we get a prequel.
Do you think there might be a prequel?
No, I just imagine it's open for like an origin story or something.
It is. I imagine that possibly where they might go after part 4. But he's not that actor wasn't Art in the first 2 shorts, was he?
Not in the short films, no.
No, you can tell. You can tell. I mean, you can tell a bit. You know, when you watch the original Terrifier short, that is a different actor playing it. But unless you were looking, you probably wouldn't notice. But I think he was a mime, wasn't he, in real life?
Yeah, I guess probably why he's so good at it then, because he does very good with the whole mime silent. And I'm like Eric though. I do think that keeping him silent is a great idea. If he was cracking one-liners, it'd probably be more cheesy, which I don't know. I might have liked.
True.
It is interesting why he didn't go down that route. I know he wanted to keep him. It's like very monochrome, isn't he? He's black and white, and he didn't want to be like the Pennywise kind of over the top kind of clown.
Yeah, he is like in terms like Joseph. I don't find clowns scary at all, but I think Art the Clown is probably the scariest clown I've seen in horror cinema because I don't find Pennywise frightening in any way. I like Joseph said, I find clowns to be kind of annoying, more than scary.
But it's all that kind of the grease paint, isn't it? And all that, you know, the red hair and the kind of terrible makeup and those horrible songs like It's a Mystery.
I knew that's where it was going. I knew it.
It's just kind of, are the Terrifier movies meant to be funny? Like Eric's Joke of the Weeks, are they meant to be funny?
I don't think so. I don't get the impression they are.
To me, the reason I would say no is strictly because of scenes like what Eric was talking about. I mean, like in part 2, when, you know, the friend is getting mutilated while still alive and her mom comes in and she's screaming for her mother. Like, I don't think that's funny. Like, I wouldn't laugh at that. There's something about calling out for your mom that just feels too realistic to me. And yeah, I'm just like, no, I don't like that. Is funny anyway. I think it's more disturbing than funny.
But I think it's interesting. I can't remember which episode we mentioned, or maybe it was off air, but Joseph, you mentioned that you went into your local Walmart or wherever it was, and there was an Art the Clown mug. You know, merchandising was obviously a big thing, and it's going to remember back in the day there were Freddy Krueger lunchboxes, weren't there, for kids, and that those huge furor, well, not huge furor, but there was things about that saying how could they possibly put horror movie villains on kids packaging, but Freddy was very popular with kids.
I saw this mug at Walmart, and you know, I'm thinking what you just said, Justin, that if you look at this mug and you have no idea what the Terrifier films are, you'd say, oh, that's a kind of an interesting, kind of creepy little clown mug, and you would think nothing else of it. If you knew the kind of context behind it, you'd kind of wonder why they just set it out in the middle of the store where any kid could just purchase it. It's kind of a neat connotation there, but yeah, I almost bought it for the episode, but
Well, I'm just going to think, because there's a well-known story of my watching that Lucio Fulci movie Enigma with my family and my grandmother, and then being scandalized by it. But you can imagine if you'd said, "Oh, we've got this clown movie called Terrifier or Terrifier 2," so putting that on with Granny watching it over Sunday lunch. Times have changed.
Yes.
Times have changed. So, was any other thoughts on Terrifier? Any kind of background for it? I mean, obviously, it has gone on to 2, 3, and presumably, if all this controversy is not resolved, or presumably, I think part 4 is in pre-production at the moment.
I mean, and not to spoil anything, but part 3 basically, you know, ends on a cliffhanger. So I'm like, you know, they better do a part 4, wrap up the story in any way.
Right. Well, talking of things that are meant to be funny.
Well, do you want to hear what our fans thought of the film first?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that first if you like.
Okay, well, this one says, I cannot stand any of the Terrifier films. I can at the very least appreciate that Art the Clown seems to have carved his spot as a modern-day horror icon, but the films lack anything worth sticking around for. Gratuitous, nasty gore and a villain with presence are not enough for me. Thoroughly unfun. That was from April. This one says, this one's kind of a long one. It says, strange one for me. When I first watched Terrifier, I thought it was pretty crap, bar the practical effects, of course. It was really dingy with that gross color grade and just felt fairly amateurish. Then I watched Terrifier 2, which, despite being overlong and self-indulgent, I really enjoyed. And then I loved Terrifier 3, which I still consider the best in the series. Once the 4K UHD release of Terrifier came out, I revisited and I was pleasantly surprised. It was a taut, fast-paced slasher with incredible practical effects. I finally got the hype, and if I had to show one from the series to make a fan of Art the Clown to anyone, I think this would be it. Also, guys, I've been listening to listening for over a decade, and I've never left a comment before, but so happy you're covering Terrifier, which for me really is a modern slasher classic and everything I love about the genre. It just took me 2 tries to realize it. Best regards and keep up the great work, Kyle MacLachlan. And I don't know if that's the real Kyle MacLachlan, but thank you, Kyle MacLachlan.
Wow, that would be kind of cool if we had a celebrity listener, but whoever
check
you
out
are,
my
Kyle.
Twin Peaks.
This last one says, I'm afraid it does nothing for me, amateurish and filmed in an ugly way. I also have no time for people who include their own name as part of the title of their film when they have yet to achieve any success. I think this one does say Damien Leone's Terrifier in some instances. I don't think it's in all instances, but I get what he's saying, or her. I don't know if this is a guy or girl, but anyway, says it stinks of self-importance. This director is no auteur, and that was from DSB. So thank you guys for writing in.
James Shirley Bassey.
2 celebrities.
I know, wow.
Wow.
So, talking celebrities, we have our own celebrity here, the celebrated comedian Eric Threlfall, on break from his world tour. So, to give us one of his patented, hilarious, in inverted commas, jokes. See what I did there, Nathan?
Inverted commas.
Yeah, inverted commas. Jokes of the week.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
You'll love this one, Justin, especially tailored for you. The villain in this movie loves, in his spare time, to watch Cocteau and Truffaut movies. He really is arty clown. He's an arty clown. He's arty, because they're... You got it, didn't you, Nathan? He's arty.
I've never seen, who'd you say? The names?
Cocteau and Truffaut.
I've not seen their movies.
It's stuff that like Justin would watch. Well, he says he watches. We all know he watches.
Because Justin's a bit posh.
Well, he says he watches them, but we know he watches Weekend at Bernie's too on a loop.
Or the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Yeah.
Joseph was so funny that his camera froze. Oh, well, it didn't.
Everybody loves a clown, so why don't I?
Sounds like a song.
So, okay. Well, I think we've that sounds rude, done Art the Clown, but that's part 1. So parts 2, 3, and 4 to come at some point in the future. But anything we, because we're kind of cramming, we're doing our recording back to back this weekend. So I haven't got anything else that I've seen to discuss. But Nathan, I believe you held a few back to tell us about.
And I didn't intentionally hold them back. I think that we got to talking about Scream 7 and I just kind of forgot to mention them. But anyway, I've got 2. The first one is called Dead of Winter. It's got Emma Thompson in it, and she plays this woman. Like her husband has passed away of natural causes, and they used to go ice fishing. So she goes, kind of just by herself to go ice fishing. But then she witnesses this woman trying to get away from this guy, and he catches her and drags her back. So then she follows and basically, finds this kidnapped girl, and she's trying to help her without the, kidnappers knowing that she's there. I thought it was good. The actors were really good in it. It's got Judy Greer in it, who played Karen in the new Halloween movies that came out, and she's really good in it too. I think, unfortunately, and this happens with a lot of these kind of movies, the character just do so many stupid things, and I just thought to myself, what are you thinking? Like, there are certain things that I'm like, if you're trying to let these people know you're not there, why are you leaving so much evidence that you are? And it's just stuff like that where I'm just like, come on. But the movie is really entertaining, aside from just characters being dumb. I really liked Emma Thompson's character because, they really flesh her character out through a lot of flashbacks of her life leading up to this moment. I think that it's definitely worth a watch. It's not very long. I know, it's maybe an hour and a half or even a little under that, actually. I didn't think it wore out its welcome or anything like that either. So I would say it's worth a watch.
Okay, I've seen it trailered, but I've not watched it yet. So is it kind of horror? Is it horror orientated or kind of like sort of thriller?
I would say it leans towards the thriller. Which thriller's kind of horror adjacent for me, but it's definitely more of a thriller just because there's a lot of cat and mouse kind of sequences, so I wouldn't call it all out horror or anything like that.
Excellent. Okay. Right. Well, thank you. Anything else? You said you had another one.
Yeah, I watched The Mutilator Part 2, which is the sequel to our beloved 80s film, The Mutilator. I don't know what I think about this movie. I'm not sure, because there are things that I liked, as in they bring back some original cast members and they're playing themselves, because it's kind of a meta sequel in that in this sequel, the Mutilator movie exists, and all the or not all of them, but a few of the actors from the original are there, and they're kind of doing this little, get together of the actors and some fans and things like that. But I mean, if I'm honest, it feels very slapped together. It feels like they just got a group of people together and were like, hey, let's throw in some gory deaths and say it's a movie. And so that's kind of how it felt to me. I will say that the death scenes are a lot of fun, and some of them are so unbelievably fake looking, but in the best possible way. Like, it's almost like Terrifier gore, but much worsely done. So it doesn't feel like painful, or it doesn't feel nihilistic. It's ludicrous stuff. And you could tell it's like latex appendages and stuff like that. So the death scenes, when they happen, are a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed them. But the rest of the movie just feels, I don't know, there's like storylines that don't go anywhere. Like, this guy is trying to hit on a woman, even though she's there with like her husband, and he catches them, and there's a big argument, but then it just gets dropped. Like, it never gets mentioned again. And it's just, I don't know. It really does feel like there was no script. It was just kind of made up as they went along. But I mean, it also wasn't boring. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, mainly because I thought it was so bad.
Oh, God, blimey.
Oh, what happened?
It's all right. Just a picture fell down.
Oh.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, Mutilator Part 2. Enjoy.
Yes, I don't think any of us have had the pleasure yet.
Not yet, no.
But y'all like the first one, so don't you want to see what happens in this one?
Yeah.
Yes, but it doesn't sound like much happens apart from lots of people getting together and having a laugh.
What you were talking about, how it's like a meta sequel, but with really cheap effects and plot lines that don't really go anywhere. I thought maybe it would have been a little more interesting if, like, maybe if there were no death scenes at all, if it was just a documentary on them, like, reminiscing about Mutilator. I thought maybe that'd be a little more interesting.
They do, there is some of that in the movie, and I actually found that kind of fun, where they're talking about their experiences, like, working on the original. The gore in the original was a little bit more realistic, though.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. Eric, did you see anything since yesterday?
No, not since yesterday. As Strawberry Switchblade once sang.
Yes, since yesterday, indeed. Joseph, how about you?
Yes, I saw 25 movies, so hold on to your hats. No, nothing.
In 24 hours, you saw 25 movies?
I have a time machine.
Hey, he has a time machine. That means he can cheat at the quizzes.
I just got the time machine.
Yeah, but you still go back in time and, I don't know.
Oh, you caught me.
Yeah.
It's a paradox or something. So, okay, well, what are we covering next time?
Okay, it's my pick, and we're going to take another Wrong Turn 3, which I think, is that the one where people make stupid decisions? Or is that another later one?
Part 4.
Okay.
Part 4 is the worst, but they make stupid decisions in all of them, I'd say.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you're into your stupid decisions...
Yeah, so, okay, well, we're just about to record our episode on Fango 59, aren't we? 59?
Yep.
And what I'm going to be covering, Revenge, which was Christopher Lewis, the follow-up to Blood Cult. What are you doing, Eric?
I'm covering... I'm covering Tom Matthews, which is apparently what you want to do.
Oh, Eric, these jokes just write themselves, don't they?
They do.
And Joseph, what are you covering?
There's an article on Tales from the Dark Side, which I'm looking at.
Okay, excellent. And Nathan?
I'm going to be looking at the special effects from Demons.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, good stuff. So, yes, if you want to listen to that or watch that, you can do that through Patreon. So if you're not already a subscriber, go over and join us there because there's good fun flick through Fangoria past issue. And we'll be back next time with another wrong turn, which, of course, I can make some joke about Derek's joke of the weeks and stuff, but I'm not sure there is a joke there to be made.
I could make a joke about taking a wrong turn and ending up in a Susie and the Banshees concert.
Oh, yeah. Well,
which would be the ultimate wrong turn.
There you go. Okay. All right. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, thank you for watching or listening or both. And we'll catch you next time on Hysteria Continues. So say goodbye to the good people. Goodbye from me.
Bye.
Bye.
Justin, Eric, Nathan, and Joseph, tell us what to do.
When the killer is behind you, your heartbeat racing fast, and the fear will start to blind you. Let's hope the script says you're the last, the final girl is you. Is you because the hysteria continues. Another retake, much more scary. Will you make it be alive? Corpses of Jim and Bloody Mary. The killer's here, death will arrive. The final girl. The final girl is you. Because suddenly the phone is ringing. A scary voice, and the fear it's bringing makes you wanna go and hide and